Today we're going to talk about the keto diet. I've done a video about the keto diet and some of our favorite keto foods and meals and tricks and stuff, but this video is going to be a little bit different because we're going to talk about how we got started with the keto diet a year ago. We were complete, total newbies. We were complete beginners. We had no idea what we were doing. So today we're going to try to sum up some of the things that helped us get started with the keto diet and that might be able to help you. We want to start with a disclaimer though. We are not dietitians. We are not here to tell you to do this. You need to talk to your doctor before you decide to do this. But if this is something that you decide you want to move forward with, if it's something that you feel comfortable doing on your own without consulting your doctor, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just telling you how we did it. So
we recommend you see a healthcare professional. We did. I had a friend at work last year who had a lot of success with the keto diet, and one of her kids has a medical issue, and that's how she got more educated with what the keto diet is and what ketosis is about. And her whole family was kind of having to eat that way because of one of the kids having a medical problem. And so she went to her doctor and talked with them, and then we've been to our physicians last year and this year to talk with them and basically let them know what we're doing and get our lab tests and done. So that's our disclaimer and kind of how we got acquainted with it. I know it's really popular. It's all over the internet. I know that it's sort of in the same vein as an Atkins or a high protein, low carb type diet, but with ketosis there's actually a different chemical process that's occurring inside of your body, and so it's not such a high protein as it is a high fat, and that's where you have to be really careful about it.
Let's kind of get into the defining features of the keto diet. The keto diet, the point of this keto diet is to put your body into what's called ketosis. So your body will be burning fat instead of carbs for energy. So with the keto diet, you have to do ultra low carb diet just because you don't want your body burning carbs because it won't go into ketosis. So you have to eat very minimal carbs and more fat because that's where your body will get its energy from.
If you have a kid that's high school or college science and biology, they can probably tell you, oh yeah, this is how the cycle works for getting energy to your cell, and nobody really cares but the kid who has to study for the exam. But your body runs on ketones. Your brain can access ketones for energy, or your brain can access glucose, and of course sugar comes from the carbohydrates. So once your body runs out of sugar, it switches over to accessing those ketones. And that's why my friend's kid has to use the ketotic diet, because there's certain seizure disorders and metabolic syndromes and people with neurologic disease processes that they're studying ketosis for, or that they use ketosis. I think the ketotic diet has been used for a long time for kids with seizure disorders or autism, but also for people with polycystic ovarian syndrome, and there's a whole bunch of different diagnoses that use that because the brain is accessing ketones and your body is accessing its fat stores. If you're just somebody that just kind of dabbles with a low carbohydrate, what's going to happen is your body's going to use the carbohydrates that are available, and then when that's depleted and gone and you don't have the high fat, your body's going to access protein. And almost anybody that's been on like a starvation diet will tell you, yeah, I lost 7 pounds the first week, and then I felt terrible and I was so tired and my muscles were weak, and that's because your ketones weren't high and your body was accessing its own muscle tissue instead of accessing the fat that's stored. We
decided in December, I think, of 2019, before Christmas. It was like the end of the year of 2019. We decided we wanted to try the keto diet. Everybody decides what they're gonna do the first of the year. It was gonna be our New Year's resolution, and we're gonna do this and it's gonna be so great. So we started keto in January of 2020, and we kind of stuck with it for the first few weeks, but then on the 25th of January, if you don't know, we got on a cruise ship and we just dropped keto like a hot potato because we wanted to enjoy ourselves. Now, The keto diet isn't so restrictive, and we'll get into that, but we just didn't want to even think about it while we were on that cruise. It is possible, but we just didn't even want to because we were just getting started. So then we kind of did it on and off all year in 2020, and now we're back in January of 2021, and so we've decided we're going to try to do it again, but we don't have a cruise scheduled. We're going to try to be really good for a while because we saw results even in those first 3 weeks, and it actually worked for us. We all felt great, and even throughout 2020 when we were doing it, it actually worked for us.
You have to be on the keto diet for about 10 days, depending on what your activity level is, and quite honestly, mine's pretty sedentary. So I have to be on it for a longer period of time to finally become ketotic. And if you are really interested, you can measure your ketones by those little, they're inexpensive, but those little urine dipsticks that you will tell you if you're ketotic or not. But there's a couple of other things, like if your breath kind of gets that little fruity smell, then you're ketotic. Or for me, I can tell I'm ketotic when I'm drinking a lot of fluids. I feel thirsty a lot. So because I'm drinking a lot of fluids, I'm going to the bathroom all the time. And that's when you're ketotic. So after you've learned a little bit about it and tried becoming ketotic, you get a little bit more acquainted with it and how your body feels on it. You
kind of feel more aware of how you feel when you are ketotic. So you kind of can tell when you're there and you don't need the test strips anymore. But when you first get started, it's really helpful to have those test strips to kind of give you a clue of where you're at and in the ketosis cycle, and if you are ketotic or not.
There's a lot of reasons why people want to make a nutritional change. They want to feel better, especially this time of year. They want to have a New Year's resolution, and so you talk to your physician. Your physician might say, no, don't do that. Or when you learn more about the diet, you might think, oh, I don't think I can stick with that. I'm going to wind up cheating a lot. That kind of completely defeats the purpose if you don't understand the diet, and so you can't follow it, or you don't follow it because you don't understand it, and so you end up cheating, and then the diet's going to fail. If your family or your friends aren't going to be supportive, I think it's really important when you have a nutritional change that you have that support of your family and friends. But if you start a diet and you don't feel good on it, that's not a diet you're going to be able to stay with, because you have to be able to feel good when you've made a nutritional change. And sometimes that's why people want to make a change, because they've been eating junk during the holidays.
Well, and some people decide to go gluten-free because they feel terrible when they eat gluten. And that's kind of how you know that you have some sort of gluten intolerance. And the same thing kind of happens with keto, is that you feel better. I know I felt better when we were doing keto. Now, I love bread. Oprah and I would get along just fine because we both love bread. But, we've found a really great keto bread that we can still have on the keto diet, and it's all about portion control. But she's right. You need to find the diet that works for you. Don't do something just because everybody else is doing it, just because the results are greater for one diet versus another. But talk to your doctor, listen to your body, and
especially now, look for a diet, because Weight Watchers is running specials. Jenny Craig is
now's a really good time
running specials. The Mediterranean diet is a really good diet. Nutrisystem. I mean, they're all over the television with their different deals. And then some of those services that will send groceries to your house, that would make a good diet for some people, because a lot of times what gets people in trouble is they get home at night and they're kind of hungry and they snack. And
you do that.
Yeah.
You still do that.
Yeah.
And it drives me crazy. But before we did keto, for a couple of years, I think 2017 or 18, we did HelloFresh, and that was really great because it helped us learn proper portion sizes. Now, I think the HelloFresh portion sizes are enormous. So I would split up a meal that was meant for 2 people into 3 or 4 or even 5 meals, and we still felt full.
Some of them were really large portions.
But then we would have lunches for the week, or we would have leftovers for dinner, and so that really helped us kind of train our stomachs to learn to eat less. And that's really important too, because with keto you need to remember that portion size is important too. Getting started with keto can be a little bit intimidating because it almost seems like you need so much equipment, or you need to go to the grocery store and spend a ton of money on produce. But what we started with was a cookbook, and I think it's this one.
It is a different way of eating.
We started with this cookbook, and a lot of keto cookbooks will, you know, treat you like a beginner. And so they will teach you what the keto diet is. Like right here, it says, what is the ketogenic diet? And then they will teach you about what you need to do to, you know, actually become ketotic and where you need to start. So getting a cookbook, I think, is a really great place to start. You don't need a scale yet. You don't need to spend a ton of money on groceries. Spend some time learning about the keto diet before you actually get started.
But I want to talk just a minute about the food pyramid, okay? I was raised at a different point in time and space, and we did have books, not all stone. But our schools used to teach us the food pyramid, and the base of the food pyramid was carbohydrates. Basically, that was how you built your day and your nutrition, and you could not possibly eat too many carbohydrates. So you'd have a bowl of cereal, and you'd have 2 pieces of toast, and they wanted you to have orange juice and a glass of milk. There's really not much protein in that. There's hardly any fat in that, and it's all carbs. And then, you know, we were trained, you'd go to school and we'd have macaroni and cheese, and you'd have some kind of, you know, breaded chicken thing that was on a bun, and maybe a side of peas, all carbs. Mm-hmm. And then you'd get home and you'd have like a little piece of, I don't know, like meat covered with some sort of gravy on it, and then mashed potatoes,
flour or cornstarch,
and it was all carbs. Mm-hmm. And basically, some people can lose weight really well when they follow that food pyramid, but it was difficult for us to do that. Now, at some point between my education and yours, they changed from the food pyramid, and they decided that's not how we want America to eat. We want them to eat some other way.
Now it's the choose my plate. And so the dairy is in a cup on the side, and so it's not on the plate anymore. It's so weird. I do remember the food pyramid because when I was in school, we started with that, and then I remember the choose my plate, and I didn't think that made much sense either because they divided it basically into 4 food groups. You've got your protein, mm-hmm. and then your vegetables. They don't mm-hmm. want you to have any fruit, and then dairy. It just, it was weird, and like the carbs they would kind of talk about, but not really. But it feels like in school they never taught you how to eat when you grow up.
Yeah.
And portion size was never a thing because the cafeteria school ladies all wanted us to be full because they were moms themselves, and so they didn't want the kids to be hungry. So they cared more about feeding the kids enough to not be hungry than teaching them how to eat and, you know, fuel their bodies for the future. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's a hole in the education system. We're not preparing kids for the future. We're not giving them the tools to succeed. And that's kind of why we are where we are. But, you know, that's a discussion for a different time.
The biggest help to me, and I think probably you and Emma, has been the free app. There
yes.
are so many free apps out there, and we each tried a different application to assist us.
We have the smartphone. We have a smartphone. We have iPhones, so we downloaded free keto tracking, food tracking apps on our phones because we didn't know, we knew we were supposed to have 30 carbs a day, 30 net carbs per day, or 25 net carbs per day, and mm-hmm. we didn't know how do we keep track of this?
How do you count that? Because you also they want you to count your macros because they don't want you to have way too much protein because then your body's not going to become ketotic. They certainly don't want you to have way too many carbohydrates. And with these apps, you can enter the food, you can choose, you know, previously eaten food or recently viewed foods, mm-hmm. and the handiest thing on it is
the barcode scanner. So if you go to, like the other day we went to Target and we got these frozen keto pizzas, and so if you scan the barcode, it will log the food for you. You can choose mm-hmm. the portion size that you had, and it already pre-populates all of the macros. Mm-hmm. And macros are protein and carbohydrates and fat, and alcohol is actually a macro, but it doesn't log those. It doesn't really matter, but it's really great to use an app. You don't have to buy one. The ones we used were free. The ones, I mean, we still use them. We use them every day to log our carbs. Even though we kind of know what we're doing now, it really helps us to keep track of where we're at for the day.
I think every diet program tells you to log what you've eaten because it keeps you on track and it makes you aware. One of the things that gets me in trouble when I'm not being careful or not watching my diet is I get busy at work and I, literally don't eat. And so then by the time I get home, I'm famished, and then I can't consume enough calories fast enough.
She's ravenous, and she will frantically search through the pantry, and she'll snack,
like a little squirrel.
She'll snack on peanuts and olives and pickles and mustard and cheese and crackers, all in about 10 minutes, and it's like she's had an entire meal of snacks.
Yeah, but I haven't had any food yet.
Right before dinner, and so she will snack before dinner, and we had a fight about this recently because I will make dinner's ready, and then she will snack as soon as she comes home.
Yeah.
And then she will be ready for dinner, but I feel like you should eat your dinner first and then snack later after you've already eaten your meal.
So just like a little kid sometimes gets home from school, or a teenager, gets out of school at, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and then they have to go to their sports practice, they need a little something. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I've started doing, is taking something that I can eat basically at the end of my day, or when I get in the car and I'm heading home. So when I get home, I'm not like that gerbil that's gone without food for 4 days. I'm just eating.
It really does help to have some snacks ready, some, small portions of meals prepared, or some prepackaged keto items. We've found that the Quest cookies are not bad, and you can keep them in your car. You don't have to worry about keeping it refrigerated, but it really does help to have some food ready for you when you're hungry, because if you have to prepare it, you're not going to eat it.
It's not going to work. You're going to cheat. And if there's 2 words that I think are attached to any successful diet, it's learning about the diet and planning for your meals. Mm-hmm. Because if you know what you can and can't eat, and you have knowledge about what makes your diet process work, that's going to help you be successful. But if you plan ahead, you kind of have this idea where you know where you're supposed to be each day and what's going to happen that evening for supper, and it helps you plan, this is what I can have for breakfast, this is what I'm going to do for lunch that day. Mm-hmm. Lunches a lot of times are easy because they're yesterday's leftovers.
I like to, when I'm at home, I like to have what we call an adult Lunchable. So it's basically a charcuterie, but I will have cheese and I will have some sliced meats. I'll do a little bit of raw crudité vegetables, sort of like carrots or red peppers. So I like to mix it up, and then I'll do mayonnaise based dip for those. And so I've got fat with the cheese and with the dip, and I've got some a little bit of carbohydrates in the vegetables and then protein in the meat, and that's really nice for me. But that's not possible for you when you're at work. And so when I cook dinner, I try to make enough that we will have leftovers at least for lunch the next day, if not for dinner some other time, or lunch for a couple of days. And it's, usually it's pretty economical to just make the recipe, time and a half the recipe, or double it. Because, we get our chicken from Aldi and it's not all that expensive.
Not that expensive.
We have a little food scale that we keep in the kitchen that we will weigh our food.
Cheese is important to weigh because it's in 1 ounce. And that doesn't mean that's the portion you have to have. That's so you can enter it and count your fat and your protein and your carbohydrates. So you measure how much you have. If it's prepackaged, like Quest makes these prepackaged chips, that's easy. But when you got a great big, brick of cheese, or
cheese doesn't come pre-measured, so it's
it does, but you're going to pay a lot for it.
It's just really important to focus on portion size, and having a scale to help you weigh your food helps you do that.
So you'll be successful, because that's why you're doing this. You want to be successful and you want to feel better.
I thought it was easy to get started with keto. Okay, not really. I didn't feel like I was denying myself. I love bread, I love pasta, I love rice, but potatoes are easy for me to cut out. But I kind of thought when we got started with keto that I would feel deprived, like I can't have anything that I like, and that's not true, because I can have bacon and I can have steak and I can have cheese, and there are just a few things that I can't have. But there are so many great options, alternatives, keto options for bread, for rice, like cauliflower rice. I've grown to like it. There's so many options for other things. Now, something we're still looking for is an alternative to crackers.
They have little chips that you can get, and they have these little cheese crisps that you can get, and Quest makes some really good chips. So you can have like chips and dip that we're
You can still have something crunchy on the diet. A lot of times that's what you miss is the crunchy food. And for me, that's a texture thing. You know, because you miss crunchy foods like crackers and chips. But the Quest chips, I do really like those.
I really like the keto diet. If I write down and make a list of foods that I like, foods that I dislike, and foods that I can either, you know, eat or not eat, there are many of the foods that I really enjoy and like to eat that I think are tasty that are in that, you know, these are good things on a keto diet. So it was pretty straightforward for me. There were so many things on the keto diet that I really do enjoy that it wasn't difficult for me. And when you're first starting it during what they call, I think the induction period is what they call it. When you're first starting it, they really do want you to be pretty strict and pretty straightforward. But after you've been on the diet for a period of time, you don't have to be quite as rigid with it. My friend whose kid is on it, they are really strict with it most of the days of the week. But then she said sometimes, you know, they'll either be gonna go out or one of the other kids has a ball game they have to go to, and it's just not always possible to stay ketotic, but they have done really well with mostly being in ketosis.
What I struggled with the most with the keto diet was figuring out where carbs actually are, because going back to the food pyramid one more time, they have carbohydrates listed as bread, rice, pasta, but there are carbohydrates in so many foods, and you don't even recognize that there are so many carbohydrates in a cup of strawberries or an apple. And so the keto diet really teaches you to recognize where carbs hide. And that for me was the most difficult part, because I would scan a food or enter a food into the app and it would give me this obscene number of carbs.
Where did that come from?
And it's shocking at first because it feels wrong, like it shouldn't be that high, but of course it is.
When stores first started to sell pre-grated cheese, it was grated, but you could tell if you left it in your car or it got the least bit warm, it would kind of re-solidify in this weird glob because it was all cheese. Now grated cheese is coated with some sort of
an anti-sticking agent similar to cornstarch,
and it adds carbohydrates. So if you want to use grated cheese, I mean, that's one of the biggest tips I can give about hidden carbs is it's hidden in some of these foods that you think it's just cheese. There's no carbohydrates in it.
Cornstarch hides in a lot of prepackaged foods, a lot of like taco seasonings that you'll buy at the store. And so when you see something that looks like it would be keto, like a meatball meal or something, a lot of prepackaged meatballs have some kind of carbohydrate filler in them to get them to stick together. So it's something I would encourage you to think about and try to be aware of when you are doing your meal planning, just because carbohydrates hide everywhere.
Everywhere. It's in try to find tomato soup that does not have corn syrup in it.
It's impossible to find.
It's really hard to find
tomato soup in a can in the store.
Spaghetti sauce, tomato sauce, ketchup.
They put sugar with tomatoes, and I don't like that anyway, even like disregarding the keto diet completely. It drives me crazy. It's a tomato, it's sweet already. You need salt on a tomato.
Yeah.
And I've got a really great tomato soup recipe that's keto, and you kind of put everything on a sheet pan and roast it, and then you stick it in the blender.
Really good.
It's really good. And there's no added sugar in that. So you have the carbohydrates that are already in the tomato and the other vegetables that you put in the soup. But it's not added sugar, it's just those natural carbohydrates, and it's still pretty low in carbs.
It was surprising for me. We are a ranch dressing family, and it was surprising to me. You think, oh, well, I'm saving myself some calories to get the low-fat ranch, and then if you look at the low-fat ranch and you run it through your app, it tells you, oh my gosh, this is loaded with carbohydrates. Yes, the fat content is low, but they've substituted that with some sort of carbohydrate, so you kind of just blew all your carbohydrates on the ranch dressing, where if you went ahead and just used a modest amount of regular ranch, you wouldn't have had any carbohydrates.
And that brings me to another point I want to make about food labels. A lot of foods right now, you know, especially at the beginning of the year, they want to focus on this has low sugar, this has high protein, this one has a third less fat, you know, whatever. It doesn't really matter what it says on the front unless it says net carbs for keto, I mean, specifically. And you don't want low fat foods for keto. You want low sugar, low carbohydrate foods. So you'll want to look at the nutrition facts on the back, and you'll want to calculate net carbs, which is total carbohydrates minus dietary fiber, and sometimes sugar alcohols will be in the food too, and you'll take those off too. So net carbs is what you want to focus on. And if something says low sugar or only so many grams of sugar, that doesn't mean that it's keto.
Low carb or
it doesn't
keto
mean
friendly.
it's keto friendly at all. So you'll want to be really aware of those, because the labels on food kind of try to get you. It's a trap. It's marketing, and they want to surprise you. Ta-da! I tricked you, and now you feel guilty because you purchased this item, and so you're gonna eat it anyway, probably, unless you're gonna give it away.
And that's why I like the app. She's really good with the math portion, and I just like the app because I can enter it. And we've actually found that there's a website you can go to. There's actually several you can go to on the internet, and you can enter. So you say you want to make your own. She makes mushroom soup, and you want to make your own mushroom soup. You enter what's in that mushroom soup on this calculator on the internet, and then it tells you how many, what the macros are, how many calories, how many fat grams, how many protein grams. It tells you all that information, and then you can enter it into the app on your phone. This is what it is, and name it for your dish. And so I've got several dishes that she makes that I've got entered in my phone, and then I just put my portion size in there, and then it calculates out those macros for me. And I really like not having to worry about that. And then I just follow the app every day, and it tells me this is what you've got left. We keep talking about fat and counting how many grams of fat, and it's not just any kind of fat. You can just have anything that's fatty that you want. There are good fats. We talk about mayonnaise. Mayonnaise is basically just oil
and eggs.
And we talk about avocados. That's a really kind of good natural fat. And we talk about butter, and that's a really kind of good natural fat. But you
vegetable
don't
oil.
Just eat fats.
Right. You want to kind of be sensible about it. Now, when you're getting started, if you're just trying to get started with keto, I say just do whatever you can, cook with what you've got. If you've got butter, if you've got bacon fat, use that, but, if you're gonna do it for an extended period of time, you're gonna wanna learn about the good fats and the bad fats, and you're gonna wanna learn and educate yourself about what you're putting in your body and what it's actually doing to your body. Everybody's on this coconut oil fad right now. I am not a believer. I just feel like a oil or a fat that is solid at room temperature is probably not the best for you. So for me, olive oil, vegetable oil, corn oil, I think. Those are the ones that I will use to cook with. Avocado oil, I've heard, is really good.
They really encourage you to use the olive oil and the avocado oil. But any book, like this is another one that we got, because we've got several keto diet cookbooks. And just like Auburn said, when you go through the beginning of these, introduction of these books, they will all teach you a little bit more.
This is a table
very helpful.
This is a table for accepted foods or acceptable foods, beverages, and ingredients. So this whole table is telling you these are the things you can have. There's a lot of words on this page. And then this table is the foods you can't have. So you've got a small table of foods that you cannot have, and look at all the things you can. And we've got another cookbook that says, sometimes foods, always foods, and never foods. I think it's actually the magazine. But it's really important for you to kind of familiarize with the foods that you can have.
We found this one just this week.
We found this at Target, and this is like by Delish. I'm not sure if it's gonna pick up. Okay, if you do like online recipes from Delish, they kind of put together this magazine, but in here,
it's showing that back page. I mean,
look at these foods. Mozzarella sticks, that's a keto recipe in here. That is a dessert in here. That's a pizza. But in here, what is keto anyway? I mean, this gives you a really great basic beginning. And this is the keto shopping list. So these are the always foods.
That coloring's not very good.
No, and then you've got the sometimes foods. And then down here you've got the never foods that you should not have or extremely limit those. But you know, it's just really so important to know what you can have and then know what you cannot have, and things that you should definitely focus on limiting or restricting. A lot of keto cookbooks will show you the nutrition facts somewhere on the page where the recipe is. This is noodle-free lasagna, and I want to make some kind of keto lasagna, but isn't it cool that they will give you the nutrition facts? The problem with turning a recipe that is not keto into a keto recipe is you don't have the macros, and you can use that website that we talked about earlier. I'll put one in the description box, but you can use that to find the carbs. But a lot of these keto cookbooks already have what you need, and so they have the macros already in here. They have the right portion size for you. They have the calories and the protein and the carbohydrates and the fats already calculated out for you, so you don't have to do anything.
Reinvent the wheel.
Right. Just find yourself a cookbook or 2 dozen that you like. We've got so many. How many do we have? I think we've got 6.
We really like books.
We do love books, and we love keto cookbooks. We love cookbooks, but we've got this one, and this one actually came from Barnes & Noble, and we got this one at the same time we got a couple of others, and it's very similar but slightly different, and so a lot of these have some overlap. You don't need a bunch of different cookbooks. I think you find one good one and you know, you're fine. But this one is keto in 30 minutes. A lot of people don't want to do a whole lot of meal prep. They don't want to spend a lot of time in the kitchen. And so finding something that you can put in a slow cooker at the beginning of the day and then just serve when you're done, like when you get home from work or at the end of the day when you're done with work, if you're working from home. But I think keto in 30 minutes, like quick keto recipes are a lot easier to find than you think. I don't, you know, do a whole lot of quick recipes because I like cooking. And so that doesn't mean that I won't do them, but I'm not going to gravitate toward those all the time. But if you don't have time in the kitchen, you don't like to cook, you don't like to spend a lot of time in the kitchen, then
there are easy ways to do it, and it doesn't have to be hard. And
you don't have to eat out of a box all the time. I am a firm believer in eating real food. I think it's really important to eat food that looks more like this than a prepackaged keto cookie from Target.
You know, drink one of the drinks.
Now
those are quick.
The shakes are quick and easy.
Those are nice. I actually keep one in my car some of the time, not all the time, but I keep one in my car because it's really handy to have.
I take them to Disney with me because they're so easy. When I go to the park, if I'm on keto and I know I don't want to eat in the park because it's too expensive, I don't want to wait in line, I don't want to wait for a table.
But that would be something that would be quick, that you could have, and it's accessible and it's easy. But
it's not an everyday, all the time kind of food for me.
You don't want to live that way. That's not real.
No, I believe in real food. I think that that's how you nourish your body and that's how you feel full. And that's something I wanted to mention about this keto diet is I never feel hungry. In one of my recent videos, I don't even remember which one, I talked about how when we got started with keto a year ago, we would eat the same meal once a week or every other week. It just felt like I was repeating the same recipes over and over again. We loved the butter chicken recipe. It's so good.
I didn't feel like I got worn out. Now, I grew up in a family where, you know, Monday night was spaghetti night and Tuesday night was Salisbury steak, and Wednesday night we had a schedule of what our food was going to be. So I don't mind so much having a routine, but I know that, you know, you like to cook different things, and that's fine because
I like to try cooking different
a chef.
things. Yeah, but I really liked having the same meals repeated because we could use, like if I went to the grocery store and bought in bulk, I could use some of that bulk left over for the next meal, and it wasn't sitting in the freezer for a long period of time. But I think it's really important to kind of rotate the meals that you're eating seasonally, to try to focus on seasonal ingredients, and then you don't get so burnt out on the food thinking, I am so tired of cauliflower rice. If I see one more meal with cauliflower rice, I'm going to scream. You don't have to have a steak every day, and doing a steak every day, it's expensive. And another thing about rotating your recipes is, you know, you can use what you've got in the fridge in a different way. You're not getting bored, but you're still using what you have and you're not spending quite as much money, because doing the keto diet is kind of a little bit more expensive because you're using fresh produce, fresh protein, and you're not buying boxed pasta, which is really cheap. It's always
really
buy one,
expensive.
get one at the grocery store down here.
A word about the cauliflower rice. When we first started eating it, I thought this was weird. And you actually made the cauliflower rice. You riced it yourself.
I used to
in
buy the
Ninja.
big head of cauliflower and either grate it on a cheese grater. Then I tried the Ninja, like, because we've got the Ninja blender, which is sort of like a food processor blender combination, and that was fine.
And it was okay. And I kind of got used to it. It just like rice picks up the flavor of whatever it is. And the texture's just a little bit different than rice, and only because it's different. But I didn't dislike it. Well, now you can find it in these 90-second microwavable packs, just like you can rice or some pastas.
Now you can find it shelf stable in little package pouches.
I love that.
And it's so easy. And I've found it at Aldi, and it's cheap, and I don't mind it. I actually don't. Now, we use the cauliflower rice, I think, the most when we make butter chicken, just because you have to have something to put that sauce on because it's so good. And, you know, of course, regular rice is fine when you're not on keto, but then when you're on keto, because the butter chicken recipe is so perfect.
That's really good.
That I make it when we are not doing keto, and then I just serve it over whatever kind of rice we have. If we have cauliflower rice, we eat cauliflower rice. If we have regular rice, we eat that. But I just needed something to soak up the sauce.
Yeah, because you can't use a straw.
Well, you shouldn't, but like the cauliflower rice helped fill us up. And so there are a lot of really great alternatives to some of those favorite foods that you have. And we've got a really great keto bread that we found down here, and I showed that in a recent vlog. I've got a couple of videos where I talk about keto, and I'm gonna link those videos in the description box of this video. And I'm going to continue uploading keto recipes. I've got one video coming up
Because we're going to stay with it for a while.
I've got one video coming up soon that I'm really excited about, and it's gonna be like football snacks that are also keto, and I'm really excited. And I am contemplating, pondering, doing more keto cooking on my Instagram. So if you are interested in watching me cook, it might be a little bit more sassy over there. It'll maybe make you laugh some more over there. But I'm thinking that that's where I'm gonna put most of my keto recipes, just because that's fun and that's easy for me, because I don't have to edit and I don't have to worry about the camera angle because I'm holding it with my hand. It's so much easier. So I think that's what I'm gonna do. If you're interested in like what we're eating for dinner,
give her some feedback. Let her know.
Yeah, let me know. But we're gonna do some more keto recipes on this channel and on my Instagram, and I think that that's gonna help because it's all three of us in this house and we're all doing keto, and I think that there are some people in this community that are interested in learning about it or that are doing it along with us. And I know we've got some friends in person and on the internet that are doing it. And so I feel like this is a community and we want to do it together. And I really enjoy doing things.
I think having that support, I think, is key. And learning as you go. You don't have to know everything about a diet, certainly, but you have to learn something. You have to have some knowledge. Knowledge is power. And then the planning, you know, having a schedule to go by. So you kind of plan, this is what we're going to have this week. These are the things I need to make sure I have in my fridge or in my pantry, because this is what's our meal plan this week. Having that planned out, I think, is critical for success.
Yeah, we have a great big laminated wall calendar that we have hung up in our kitchen dining room area. And so that really helps me meal plan, because I will write in really big letters in, you know, for the week what we're going to be eating, and that helps her plan her day. And when I sit down and plan the meals that I'm going to make this week, I will go to the pantry and the fridge and the freezer, and I will take inventory of what we have, and I will make up the list of the things that I need. And so then I don't overbuy and buy duplicate things at the grocery store, so I'm spending less money. And then if I can, I will reuse or use some of another item for another recipe this week. So if we're gonna do 2 chicken recipes, and one is for chicken breast and one's for chicken thighs, I will see if I can adapt one of those to the other kind of meat and use that instead, and then just buy the family pack of meat at Aldi, and it's cheaper. And I like doing that. And sometimes on Monday I will go to the grocery store, come home and cook a recipe or two, and we'll have dinner for that night and, you know, the next night, or we'll have leftovers for the rest of the week. And so we've got a lot of options for meals for that week. I don't mind knowing ahead of time what we're going to have, and sometimes I don't mind having the same thing again, because sometimes it's just so good you don't want to stop eating it. Like the butter chicken, I could have that once a week and never be bored of it just because it's so good. But I think that's kind of where we're gonna end this. If you have any questions about keto, again, we're not experts, you know, we don't know everything about it, but we can kind of give you a little bit of guidance where we started and how, you know, we
some of the things
worked
we learned
through some of these things. Yeah, some of the things we learned.
We learned along the way that were surprising.
If I have one tip, it would be to download the Keto app and buy yourself a keto cookbook. It doesn't have to be expensive. I talked about finding cheap keto cookbooks at Barnes & Noble in the sales section. They have so many options.
They have them at the checkout at the grocery store, at Walmart, at Target.
And I think this one came from the grocery store because I can't find this one, this specific cookbook. This is the one with the butter chicken recipe. I can't find this cookbook anywhere because I would link to it if I could. But just find yourself a keto cookbook and read the introduction section, because I'm sure that it will kind of give you some background information, how it works, what it does, what you can do, what you can't do, what you should and shouldn't eat. But get started with this.
And the free app, pick one and try it for a week even before you start your keto plan. So you can at least say, this is what I'm consuming now. Am I eating a lot of carbohydrates now? And then you can find out, do I like this app? Is this user friendly for me? Because I have a different app than the kids do. Our brains work differently, obviously. And they have an app that works for them, and I have an app that works for me. So find the one that works for you and start using it, maybe even before you start your nutritional change.
Yeah, just start logging what you eat so you kind of get a baseline of what you've been eating. And sometimes that's really shocking, you know, like how many carbs are in my cup of coffee in the morning, and how many of those am I having in a day?
How many Mountain Dews do I consume in a day?
Right. When you start thinking about or making a journal or putting it in your app and logging what you've got, and then the app, something is telling you this is what you're doing to yourself, it's a reality check. And it totally, for me, it was shocking that, oh wow, okay, can't do that anymore. And I have found, you know, a way to make my coffee in the morning that I like, and so it's not a big deal because there's so many alternatives. And it's not deprivation, it's changing, it's finding an alternative for something, not having it at all anymore. So I think that's important to consider.
But if you've got some great tips, we want to hear them.
Yes, if you have any keto tips, any recipes that you've loved, any keto cooking channels on YouTube, anything that you want to share for me or her or anybody else in this community, if you have something you want to say, anything you want to share, anything you want to know, you can reach me by Instagram direct message. You can leave a comment and I will answer you. But I want this to be, you know, a thing that we're doing together. So I don't want you to do this and feel like, oh, I'm all alone, because you're not, because we're doing it too. So don't be scared, don't be alone, and get yourself a good cookbook, and, you know, just communicate if you need to. Reach out, because we're here. So I think that is where we're gonna end this keto tips video. Again, if you have any questions, leave them in the leave them in a comment. I will leave some links in the description box, and you guys will see us, or me, or us, I don't know. You'll at least see me in another video really, really soon.